Right, so nothing quite says I'm above the law more than taking down the structures made to hold you to account, sacking those at the top and screaming opposition to court orders placed on your decisions, preventing you from doing whatever you please. These are the actions of a dictator. These are the actions of Benjamin Netanyahu. Upon attempting to fire the head of the Israeli security agency, Shin Bet, a guy called Ronen Bar, allegedly over failures in connection with October 7th, Netanyahu was stopped by the Supreme Court from doing so, whilst also being condemned for his overreach by the Israeli Attorney General, Gali Baharav-Miara, who warned him against violating the court ruling by appointing a replacement for Bar. Frankly, I'm amazed Netanyahu hasn't called the Supreme Court of Israel antisemitic yet, but there is still time for that, I suppose. Whilst Netanyahu's cheeks might have been burning with shame, though, he also oversaw a vote of no confidence in Baharav-Miara in a bid to remove her from her post too. How dare she oppose him as well, it would seem. Benjamin Netanyahu's power trip now risks civil war in Israel as he draws battle lines between himself and Israel's own security forces. And the gulf of mistrust between the two is widening. Is there any lengths this man will not go to keep himself in power, or will Israel descend into civil war after making so much war on those around them? Right, so Benjamin Netanyahu is currently engaged in an unprecedented assault on his country's democratic institutions, attempting to place himself above the law in effect, and it's all coming about surrounding the story of this firing of Shin Bet chief Ronen Bar and pushing a vote of no confidence against Attorney General Gali Baharav-Miara. But what does he hope to achieve by getting on the wrong side of Israel's own security agency? Is it all a bit of a power trip, or is there more to it? Well, yes, there's more to it. He wants to avoid an independent investigation into the catastrophic security failures of October 7th, which Ronen Bar has admitted to his own failures over. Shin Bet should have seen it coming, should have prevented it. The axe falls on him, effectively, doesn't it? But Bar also wants to do an investigation into those failures and how they happened. And Netanyahu, well, he doesn't want that. He's ardently blocked it. And again, you have to wonder if it was all Hamas on that night as a result. Why on earth would Netanyahu not want that, therefore? Except when you consider the role of the IDF, the tanks, the helicopters, the shelling, the Hannibal directives that former Defence Minister Yoav Gallant has admitted were in place on that night. And, well, you have a picture of a guy in Netanyahu with something to hide about all of that then, don't you? Ronen Bar wants to investigate. So Netanyahu going ahead and suppressing that by sacking the Shin Bet boss to stop all of it is par for the course for him. But then the Israeli Supreme Court said no, we should have stopped him. But, well, the story's not over yet, is it? Benjamin Netanyahu now risks starting a full-blown constitutional crisis that threatens to push Israel towards civil conflict over this matter of Ronen Bar. Netanyahu already is on trial for corruption as it is. He is now openly defying the Israeli Supreme Court, overriding its rulings or threatening to remove officials who could hold him accountable. Never before in Israel's history has a sitting government dismissed the head of Shin Bet or the Attorney General, as is now being attempted. That's how off the rails Netanyahu is compared to all of his predecessors. And that's a low bar. Yet Netanyahu is doing both, with far-right allies like Itamar Ben-Gvir cheering him on from the sidelines. Now, Shin Bet, the Israeli security agency, is Israel's domestic intelligence service, responsible for counter-terrorism, preventing espionage, safeguarding national security. This is unlike Mossad, which is better known, which deals with foreign-based intelligence. Shin Bet is all about domestic. They focus on internal threats, and that would include the Hamas infiltration on October 7th, Jewish extremist violence, and political subversion. Now, historically, Shin Bet has been fiercely independent. They have often clashed over the years with politicians who have tried to interfere in its politicians. I can't imagine Israeli politicians trying to do such a thing, can you? But Shin Bet's autonomy has been a cornerstone of Israel's security apparatus, this three-point security outfit it has, supposedly ensuring that intelligence decisions are based on the threats that are at hand and not on political agendas. Ronen Bar was appointed Shin Bet chief in 2021, and he's always been an intelligence officer. He's had a career in it. He had served under multiple governments, and he was the deputy at Shin Bet before that. As a result of all of that, Bar wasn't someone, therefore, to jump to Netanyahu's tune, and that was a big problem for someone like Netanyahu. And even more so when Bar was investigating him personally on another matter entirely, which may have much more to do with this matter coming to a head now. Why sack him over October 7th now when we're in 2025 after all? Why did you not do it in 2023? That's more personal investigation might well have more to do with this move by Netanyahu now than October 7th ever did. It seems logical to conclude that, and I'll come on to what that matter is further in a moment. But making Netanyahu's position all the more inexcusable is the fact that Bar held his own hands up over October 7th and said he would resign, but only after an investigation into October 7th was carried out. That's the big problem for Netanyahu. Now that we know the IDF were ready and able to go into Hamas's midst on that night, into the Nova Music Festival, into the nearby kibbutzim, well equipped and with Hannibal directives having been issued and orders to kill their own people rather than let them be taken hostage, as they are, for all the blame that can be rightfully attributed to Hamas for that night, the scale of it remains in question without that investigation, and without any real report on Israeli acts of that night having ever been made clear. Bar had indicated he would step down once a full inquiry into the October 7th intelligence failures was completed. Any sensible government would, you would think, want to know how this had happened. But Netanyahu doesn't want an investigation at all. And that points to the very suspicious mind, and I am one of these people with such a mind, towards concluding there is truth there that he doesn't want to come out. Truth that in all likelihood may well implicate him directly, in which case. By firing Bar before an investigation, Netanyahu can ensure that no independent review will scrutinise his government failures. He'll make sure a new head of Shin Bet gets appointed who will leave it well alone. And there's another reason why Netanyahu wants Bar gone, though, and that comes down to that more personal investigation being carried out. You see, Shin Bet was reportedly investigating Netanyahu over allegations he was secretly forging alliances with the Qatari government without proper oversight, and that some members of Netanyahu's own office took money to promote Qatari interests going forwards after. Where Netanyahu denies this investigation influenced his decision to sack Bar, the timing of the sacking now, allegedly over October 7th, but so long after that night now, is highly suspicious. And of course that is on top of the corruption charges Netanyahu is still facing too, now kicked down the road once more as he resumes his genocide of the Gaza Strip. Problems arose for Netanyahu, though, when he moved to dismiss Bar, because Israel's Supreme Court blocked his decision, didn't they? They ruled that the Prime Minister cannot fire the Shin Bet chief until Bar's appeal can be heard. Yes, Bar might have said he'll go, but he's not going to go before that investigation into October 7th has been carried out, and he's actually digging his heels in over that point, driving Netanyahu almost to the point of pulling his comb-over out. In fact, we know it did, because he took to Twitter to vent his spleen. There will be no civil war. The state of Israel is a state of law, and according to the law, the government of Israel decides who will be the head of the Shin Bet. Shabbat Shalom. Sure, you just can't sack him yet until he's had his appeal. That's the law too. Netanyahu's next target after the Supreme Court slammed the brakes on him over Ronen Bar, though, was Attorney General Gali Baharav-Miara, Israel's top legal official, who has defended the Supreme Court's authority over that of Netanyahu's. By coming out to bat for Ronen Bar, she's made herself a target, having been a thorn in Netanyahu's side for a while. An excerpt of her viewpoint reading, Israeli Attorney General Gali Baharav-Miara has warned Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu against selecting a new head for the Shin Bet, following a Supreme Court ruling that halted the removal of Ronen Bar from his role. In a letter to Netanyahu, Baharav-Miara wrote, according to the Supreme Court's decision, any action that undermines the status of Shin Bet chief Ronen Bar is prohibited. She further stated, appointing a new Shin Bet chief is forbidden, and conducting interviews for the position is also not allowed. Gali Baharav-Miara has been a bit of a check on Netanyahu's authoritarian tendencies. You could judge her success on that, I suppose, given what Netanyahu has definitely got away with, and perhaps her own leanings over that as well. But these have included opposing his judicial overhaul plans, which sought to neuter the Supreme Court and would have got him out of the hole he is in with Shin Bet by effectively placing himself above the law. She had also refused to delay his corruption trial any further, already having been delayed for several years, despite his demands for immunity, again, all about making himself untouchable. So as a result of her latest act against his personal interests, Netanyahu and his cabinet have passed a no-confidence motion against her, another unprecedented attack on Israel's legal system. Not quite a sacking yet, but well on the way. And this, like the sacking of a Shin Bet chief, would be unprecedented. It's never happened in Israel before. Netanyahu's far-right coalition partners, particularly National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir, have demanded even harsher action against Ronen Bar, though, because of course he has. Ben-Gvir has called for Bar to be imprisoned, accusing him of conspiring against democracy. Well, Why did that hard-right little goblin decide to weigh in on this then? Well, because Shin Bet under Ronen Bar has been investigating far-right extremists, undermining the police and security services, which is a direct threat to Ben-Gvir's militant base, not to mention the national security forces, separate from those aforementioned, that he oversees. By eliminating Bar, Netanyahu appeases his far-right allies whilst ensuring that investigations into extremist violence are shut down, making the likes of Ben-Gvir very happy. Netanyahu's actions are not about security entirely, though. They are, as everything he does always is, all about himself. He is blocking an October 7th investigation because it could expose his government's involvement on that night when he wants it all blamed on Hamas. Yet the circumstantial evidence and the eyewitness accounts, not to mention Hannibal directives that have been confirmed, point to Israeli atrocity on that night as well. He is firing Shin Bet's chief to stop probes into October 7th, into his Qatar dealings and the actions of his far-right allies. He is attacking the Attorney General to dismantle judicial oversight in effect and challenge anyone to say he can't do what he likes and the law can't touch him. Because if he tries, he just removes or sacks whoever blocks his path. This is not normal politics. It is the behaviour of a despot willing to destroy democratic institutions just to keep himself in power and out of jail. A group who absolutely are holding Netanyahu to account and for whom he can't do anything about, it seems, though, are the Houthis of Yemen. And they might have just found a way to shut down flights to Israel, crippling the rogue state both militarily and economically, and they might not need to even fire another rocket to enforce it either. How, Damo? Well, find out in this video recommendation here as your suggested next watch. Please do hit like, share and subscribe if you have not done so already, so as to ensure you don't miss out on all new content published daily, as well as helping support the channel at the same time, which is very much appreciated. And I will hopefully therefore catch you on the next vid. Cheers folks.